Mead Mule. My name's John, and today I'm going to be talking about some bourbon. This is my third YouTube review. Before I actually start talking about the bourbon, so I recorded two previous videos. If you have seen those videos, then thanks for watching. I did those videos back in August of last year, and now it's January. So it's been a long time in between videos, and I apologize for that. I've been intending to do videos on a more regular basis, at least a couple a month, and it just hasn't happened. And part of that was the video I'm about to do, I tried to do already back in September. I actually recorded this, and when I went to film it, my camera was set to record for 20 minutes and then turn off, some kind of weird feature in the camera. I thought 20 minutes, no problem. I'm not going to talk for 20 minutes. Well, I did talk for 20 minutes, and way over 20 minutes. And so half of the video ended up getting cut off, and it was unusable as a result, what was left. So I got frustrated and didn't do another video until now. So apologize for that. Hopefully the same thing won't happen today. And well, I'm determined to not let it happen. For one thing, I've got a timer going, so if it goes off, I'll know to wrap things up. What I tried to do back in my failed previous third video was a review of this Four Roses small batch 2017 limited edition Al Young 50th anniversary, which is a very long title. I actually was planning on that previous video to open it up on the video and give you guys my initial thoughts on this particular bottle and talk about Four Roses in general, which I did. In that failed video, I did open up this bottle and tasted it for the first time. Unfortunately, that video is now lost forever. Sorry. Which is actually a good thing, because the reality is now that I've spent some time with this bourbon, I know it better, I understand it better, and really the bottle has improved with some time. Time being open. It was a little uptight when I first opened it, and to be honest, I was slightly disappointed with it when I first opened it. So I'm kind of glad it worked out this way. I wish it hadn't taken me so long to get around to doing another video, but anyhow, a little bit about Four Roses first off. Now, part of the reason in my first video I went so long is I went really way too detailed into the history of Four Roses and what they do, so I'm not going to do that this time. I'm going to try and keep this short and sweet. Four Roses does have a really interesting history. At one point in time, they were actually the best-selling bourbon brand in America back in, I believe, was the 1940s and 50s, I think. But then things kind of went south for them, and they became basically bottom shelf trash for a while. But then the brand was kind of revived, and now it's great again. So one of the interesting things about Four Roses is they are unique in that they make 10 different bourbon recipes. And they blend those 10 different recipes together for their regular, just plain old Four Roses bottle, which is the yellow label. It's a blend of all 10 of those recipes. And where to get those 10 recipes is they have two different mash bills. One is a high rye mash bill, the other is a lower rye mash bill. Although, really, they're both fairly high rye compared to the mash bills of a lot of other bourbon makers. So they have two different recipes, two different mash bills, and then 5 different yeast strains. And the combination of those 5 yeast strains with the 2 different mash bills, they end up with 10 different recipes. So, like I said, with the regular yellow label, they blend all 10 of those together. With their small batch, their standard small batch, is a blend of, I don't remember off the top of my head how many of the recipes, I think it's 4, and I forget which recipes they are. And then their single barrel is, the common single barrel Four Roses is just one specific of those recipes. And then you can also get store pick single barrel cask strength Four Roses, and specifically this is their private selection bottlings. And these they will tell you on the side, I don't know if you can see this from there, but it'll tell you the name of the recipe. This particular one is an OESQ. So all the 10 recipes have a 4-digit letter code. And the second digit there, in this case the E, tells you if it's high rye or low rye. E is low rye, B is high rye. And then the last letter tells you tells you which of the yeast strains that particular recipe is. Anyhow, a lot of people like to try and collect all 10 recipes in these private selection bottlings. I've been trying to do that myself over the years. I've got 8 out of the 10 right now. And a lot of these can be really, really great. I've had some absolutely terrific store picks of the private selection. This one right here is an excellent one. I got this from a local store. And anyway, look out for those if you are interested in a really good single barrel bourbon. They run in price, I think, around $60 or $70 now. They've gone up a little bit in the last few years, as has everything in the whiskey world. But I'm specifically going to talk today about this Al Young edition. This is a blend of 4 different of the 10 recipes, and it actually gives you some nice information on the back of the bottle here. It tells you specifically which 4 recipes they are and how old they are. There is a 12-year-old OBSF recipe, a 15-year-old OBSK recipe, a 13-year-old OESV recipe, and a 23-year-old OBSV recipe. So 3 of the 4 are the high rye mash bills, and then 1 is a low rye mash bill. So most of this is the higher rye mash bill. This is bottled at 53.8%. And it was a pretty limited bottling. I don't remember exactly how many bottles they made of this. It was not easy to get. I lucked into managing to buy a bottle locally at MSRP. And now this was an expensive bottle. About $150 was about the MSRP, which is what I paid for it, making it, I believe, the most expensive bottle of bourbon I personally have purchased. Four Roses, every year they come out with a limited edition small batch, which is not this one. So this year they actually did 2 different limited edition small batches. The regular one, which comes in a bottle that looks like this, this is not the 2017 edition. I'm saying this year. I'm talking about 2017. I realize it's 2018 now. This is actually the 2014 small batch, which is the only version I have of the small batch limited edition other than this Al Young edition. So this came out earlier in 2017, and then they also put out the regular small batch limited edition. You can see this is a very different bottle design. So this was specifically bottled to commemorate the 50th year of employment for Al Young, who's one of their brand ambassadors, I believe, and he's worked in a number of different roles at Four Roses. He's been there for 50 years, so they made this particular bottle in his honor. And the bottle design actually harkens back to what the Four Roses bottle looked like when he first started working there in 1967, I guess it would have been. So it's a really cool retro bottle design. Personally, I really like the bottle design. Yeah, I think it's cool. All right, well, let's talk about the actual whiskey. I have poured a glass here, which has been sitting for a little while. So I mentioned earlier that when I first opened this bottle, I was slightly disappointed in it because it was a little tight and restrained, a little astringent, and a lot of the really good flavors just weren't popping out at first. But as the bottle's been open especially for a few months now, it has really improved. That said, this really does better with air. Meaning, if you're going to enjoy this, I really recommend pouring a dram of it, pouring an ounce or 2 into a glass, and letting it sit for 20 or 30 minutes and then come back to it and then enjoy it, because it really opens up just with some exposure to air. And as you guys that watch a lot of other whiskey reviews probably have heard other reviewers talk about that, Ralphie, of course, mentions that a lot if you watch him, that especially well-aged whiskeys really do better when they have some exposure to air. And that is definitely true with this guy. So I do recommend that. I poured this probably about half an hour ago now. Yeah, at least. All right, so I'm going to give some quick nosing and tasting notes. It's a really nice nose that's different by a lot of bourbon standards. It's not as sweet as a lot of bourbon noses can be. It's very masculine. The nose, I think that if you could take this exact scent and make it into like a men's body wash or a men's hand lotion, something like that, it would work pretty well, because it's just got that kind of a deep masculine type of smell, very oaky, woody. There's a little sweetness in there with a little bit of caramel especially. There's a lot of leather, definitely old leather, old oak. And that's, I'm sure, coming from the fact that a portion of this is 23-year-old whiskey, which is pretty old, especially by bourbon standards. I get some sesame seeds, some caraway, a little, like I said before, it's not terribly sweet. There's some caramel, as I mentioned, and there's some vanilla. It's almost like an unsweetened vanilla. It's pretty nice. A touch floral, just a little touch floral. But actually, the most dominant note that I get on this, on the nose, is peanut brittle. This really smells, to me, so much like some good peanut brittle, which I love peanut brittle. So I'm definitely digging this nose. Peanut brittle is a candy, of course, but it's not like the sweetest, or at least not the sweetest smelling candy in the world. And so it just has this nice, rich, deep, oaky, leathery peanut brittle. And I like it a lot. On the palate, the first thing I noticed about the palate when I first opened the bottle, and continue to notice, is that there is a really nice kind of a gourmet caramel. Now, caramel is a very common flavor that you find in whiskey, especially bourbon, but Scotch too. This is a distinctive type of caramel. It's very different than a lot of the caramel you get in other bourbons. It's kind of hard to describe, but it just tastes to me like the way a really high-end artisan small batch caramel might taste like. Just really rich and not overly sweet. I don't even know if that's really a product that exists. It's just the best way I can describe it. Again, like the nose, it's not terribly sweet. There's definitely some oak. Again, some leather. It's a touch of dill, just a little bit. The rye spice is evident. There's actually a good amount of, I would say, rye bread. It tastes a little like rye bread or rye toast maybe. It's pretty complex. There's a lot of deep, rich flavors in here, but again, not super sweet. A little fruity, but not terribly fruity. I get a little bit of cherry up front when I first sip it, which kind of fades a little bit. Let me take another sip here. There's some dry cinnamon. Definitely some dry cinnamon, some other kind of dry spices. So it's not like the sweetened cinnamon, like cinnamon candy. It's really just like a dry cinnamon powder. And a little bit of nutmeg, definitely. And that nutmeg definitely continues on to the finish. The finish actually sweetens up a little bit. It's quite long. The fruitiness comes out more in the finish than it does on the palate. And there's a little bit of, like, I'm tasting a little apricot, maybe peaches, maybe like a fruit syrup just on the finish that I didn't notice on the palate, which is really interesting. You don't usually go from a non-fruity palate to suddenly there's some fruit on the finish, but in this case that I'm getting a lot more fruit lingering in my mouth than what I was tasting when I actually had the whiskey in my mouth. So it's pretty interesting. More oak, more cinnamon, a little bit of almost chestnuts, I think, which is interesting. It's really a long finish. I mean, I'm still tasting it right now. Really a nice finish. Yeah. So overall, this is a really terrific bourbon. This has won a lot of accolades and really high praise. I think Whiskey Advocate magazine gave it a 96 out of 100, which is a really high score for them, or really for anybody. And I've seen lots of other people really praise this bourbon, and it's justifiably praised because it is excellent. And I gotta admit, this, I think I'm enjoying it right now even more than I have the last several times I poured it and took notes of it. And I'm almost rethinking my score. I was going to give this a 92 out of 100. I'm almost thinking about bumping it up a point to a 93. Yeah, just that transition from the somewhat dry, oaky, darker palate to suddenly being a little sweeter and brighter and fruitier in the finish is so unique and interesting. I'm gonna up it to a 93 out of 100 as my official score. It's a terrific bourbon. If you have the opportunity to buy a bottle, go for it, as long as it's a reasonable price. Well, $150 to start with is, in my opinion, not entirely a reasonable price for a bottle of bourbon, but if you can get it around that price, go for it. I don't know what these are going for in the secondary market at this point. Probably many hundreds of dollars, because the chances are you're not going to walk into a store and find this anywhere in the world at this point. It sold out very quickly. You never know. People find crazy old bottles at random little liquor stores all over the country. But this is a difficult bourbon to find. Nonetheless, wanted to provide a review in case some people were interested in knowing more about it and maybe had the chance to buy it. Hopefully this helps a little bit. That's about all I have to talk about this guy. I think that I'm actually going to slide in under 20 minutes this time pretty easily. Check my watch here. Oh, yeah, barely, but yeah, we're good time-wise. So, again, sorry it took me so long to get to my third video. I am definitely planning to do more soon. If you're interested for more of my reviews, I do a lot more reviews on my website in written form, meadmule.com, MEADEMULE.com. I'm also on Twitter and Instagram, so give me a follow there. All right, until next time, Sláinte.